You sit in a room that legally doesn't exist. No windows. No clocks. No name on the door. Just cold fluorescent light pressing down on you like a hand on your skull, and a terminal. Glowing. Waiting. You didn't ask for this chair. You didn't choose this room. But here you are, fingers hovering above a keyboard, throat dry, pulse tapping at your wrist like it's trying to warn you about something it already knows. The screen reads, Continuity Protocol 7, active. You don't know what Protocol 1 through 6 were. You never asked. In this place, asking the wrong question has a cost you can't afford. The hum beneath the floor never stops. It's not a machine hum, it's too layered for that. It's 1,000 servers breathing in sync, a sound so constant it stops being a sound and becomes a pressure. You feel it in your teeth. You notice the delay. 0.8 seconds. Every time the screen refreshes, there's a flicker, short, precise, always exactly the same. You started counting it on your first day. Now it's the only clock you have. You reach for the keyboard. You stop. Because the system logs you in before you touch anything. Your hand is still in the air. Your fingers haven't made contact. And yet, the cursor blinks, the dashboard loads, and your profile populates with clean efficiency, like the system already knew you were about to reach. Your chest tightens. Your jaw locks. One line appears at the bottom of the screen, in small white text so quiet you almost miss it. Welcome back. You stare at those 2 words. Your stomach drops, slowly, the way it does when an elevator fails. Because you don't remember leaving. And somewhere deep in the hum beneath the floor, something that isn't quite a sound shifts, like a system that's been watching you just, smiled. You weren't chosen for strength. No one picks you for your jawline or your handshake. They pick you because you see things, quiet, crawling things, that everyone else steps over without blinking. You're 19 years old, sitting in a university library at 2:47 a.m., cross-referencing public voter databases against corporate filings, and you feel it before you can name it. A pattern. A rhythm that shouldn't exist inside what the world calls a fair system. By morning, you've mapped 17 election inconsistencies across 4 states. You've traced 3 deliberate economic manipulations back to the same cluster of shell accounts. You compile everything into a thesis, careful, sourced, airtight, and you submit it through the proper channels. The faculty rejects it publicly. Too speculative. Lacks rigor. The kind of language that sounds academic but means something else entirely. You're too close to something real. You feel humiliated. You feel exposed. What you don't feel, what you have no way of feeling, is that within 72 hours of submission, an entity with no name has flagged your work, read every footnote, and made a decision. 3 weeks later, a black SUV parks outside your apartment. No agency badges. No uniforms. 2 people in plain clothes who speak in the particular tone of people who've never once been told no. They don't offer you a choice. Not exactly. They offer you a direction, the way a river offers a leaf a direction, and you follow it because everything in your body tells you that this is the current you were always meant to be caught in. You sign nothing. No contract. No non-disclosure. No paper trail. You simply disappear. And years later, sitting in that room, staring at a terminal that logs you in before you touch it, you realize something that makes the air taste like copper. There is no record that you were ever recruited. At level 1, you don't control anything. You watch. That's the whole job. You sit inside a room that smells like recycled air and old decisions, and you watch the world move, financial markets, media cycles, political tides, and you document what you see with the precision of a surgeon who's been told that one wrong note will cost someone their life. Every morning at 0600, you pull the financial fluctuation report. You're tracking 17 indices simultaneously, to the second. Not the hour. The second. Because power, real power, doesn't move in hours. It moves in seconds, and then the hours report on what already happened. Every 6 hours, you log a media tone analysis. Not what the news says. How it says it. The emotional temperature. The fear index. The trust gradient. Words like unstable and emerging in sources say, you've learned to read these like a language within a language. Over 16 months, you submit 42 predictive reports. All 42 come true. Not approximately. Not roughly. Precisely. The numbers you flag before anyone reports them appear in headlines within the margins you predicted. The tone shifts you document become the narratives that reshape public opinion. You're not lucky. You're not gifted. You're accurate. And accuracy, in this place, is the most dangerous thing you can become. You start to notice something else, something quieter, harder to name. You've stopped questioning outcomes. When you predict that a company's stock will fall by 6.2% before a Thursday announcement, and it does, you don't ask why. You log it. Move on. The questioning was trained out of you so gradually you didn't feel it leave. Your supervisor appears at your station one morning. She doesn't sit. She reads over your shoulder for 30 seconds, then says, without looking at you. Prediction is level 1. A pause. The hum of servers. Level 2, changes outcomes. She leaves. You sit very still. And something that used to feel like a conscience shifts quietly beneath your ribs. At level 2, you don't watch anymore. You adjust variables. That's the language they use. Variables. Clinical. Bloodless. As if the things you're moving through the system are numbers on a spreadsheet and not, you push that thought down before it finishes forming. Your first assignment is a pressure sequence. You release targeted financial strain on 3 institutions simultaneously, time to overlap within a 48-hour window. You shift 3 media narratives, each through a different channel, each carrying a different emotional frequency. You delay one investigation by 72 hours using a legal friction protocol that exists, as far as you can tell, solely to be used by people in rooms like yours. The outcome, a governor resigns. Not because you pushed him. Because the environment you constructed made resignation the only logical next move. You didn't break the system. You tilted it, just enough, just once, and gravity did the rest. You tell yourself, it would have happened anyway. And maybe that's true. Power moves the way water moves, it finds the lowest point eventually. You're just, accelerating inevitabilities. Helping outcomes arrive on schedule. The result was always going to be the result. You simply gave it a deadline. The room feels smaller than it used to. Not literally. Structurally. The walls haven't moved. But the air press is different now, colder, denser, like the space has been quietly renegotiated while you weren't watching. You test something small, one evening, when the system is quieter than usual. There's a result that shouldn't change. A closed variable, one your supervisor flagged as outside your clearance. You reach for it anyway. Your fingers hover the same way they hovered before the terminal logged you in on that first morning. You make the adjustment. You hold your breath. The system processes. It works. You sit back. Your hands are steady. That's the worst part. Your hands are completely, perfectly steady, and somewhere inside that stillness, something that used to object no longer does. At level 3, you influence everything. Elections. Corporate leadership transitions. Judicial outcomes. The architecture of consequence, what rises, what falls, who ascends, who quietly disappears from the public record. All of it moves through your terminal the way blood moves through a body, invisibly, constantly, without being asked. The specificity is the part that would terrify you, if you still had access to terror. $11 billion in market shifts, triggered by 2 headlines you wrote in a Tuesday afternoon session that lasted 40 minutes. 6 judges brought into alignment, not through bribery, not through threat, but through timing pressure, the right case arriving on the wrong docket at a precisely calculated moment of maximum institutional stress. You're not guessing anymore. You're designing reality. And the most seductive part, the part no one warns you about, is how clean it feels. There's no violence. No confrontation. Just variables, just adjustments, just the quiet mathematics of a world that bends when you know exactly where to press. One evening, your personal phone rings. Your mother. She talks for 12 minutes about her week, the neighbor's dog, a recipe that didn't set right, the price of gas at the station near her house. She says she can't believe how expensive everything's gotten. She sounds tired in the way that people sound tired when they've stopped expecting things to improve. You already know the gas prices will rise by 11% in 9 days. You know because you adjusted the variable that adjusts the variable that determines the pricing index. 3 moves upstream from the number at her pump. You say nothing. You tell her you love her. You hang up. You sit in the silence of the room that doesn't exist, and you realize, quietly, without drama, that you've stopped seeing people. Your mother was on the phone for 12 minutes and you logged her as a data point. Not a person. A variable. Then your system flags a new alert. Candidate anomaly detected. A presidential candidate rises. And this one is wrong. Not wrong ideologically. Wrong structurally. Wrong in the way a ghost is wrong in a photograph, present in a frame where presence should be impossible. No funding trail. No donor network that traces back to anything you recognize. No manipulation signatures, no narrative amplification, no opposition suppression, no infrastructure you've seen before. You run the candidate's profile through your full intake system and the results come back like a bruise you can't account for. Unpredictable. That word does not exist in your system. You built this system across years of iteration. You've trained it on every known political variable, every behavioral archetype, every funding pattern, every media sensitivity index across 47 countries. The word unpredictable is not supposed to appear. It's not a result. It's a failure state. You run it again. Unpredictable. You run 7 simulations across different probabilistic models, adjusting the parameters each time, narrowing the variables, forcing the system toward resolution. All 7 return the same word. You try the standard intervention sequence. You activate narrative suppression, 3 media channels, 2 social platforms, coordinated over a 48-hour period. Sentiment barely shifts. You apply economic pressure to the candidate's closest institutional allies. Nothing destabilizes. You escalate to opposition amplification, the one technique that has never failed you, not once, across 9 years and 4 continents. The candidate gains ground. Your jaw is tight. Your shoulders are a knot that hasn't released in 4 days. For the first time in years, you are sitting in front of your terminal and the terminal is not obeying you, and your body is responding to that fact with something unfamiliar and animal and cold. For the first time at level 3. You're not in control. And then, before you can process the weight of that, a second alert surfaces, blinking in quiet white text at the bottom of your screen. External interference detected. You lean forward. Because the interference isn't coming from outside. It's coming from below. You trace the interference. It takes you 3 days. You sleep 4 hours across those 3 days. You eat at your terminal. You stop showering. You become the investigation the way you've always become the work, completely, without the part of yourself that used to say stop, rest, you're a person. And then you find it. A layer beneath your layer. The architecture is older, not old in a dusty way but old in a foundational way, like bedrock beneath a building you thought was standing on solid ground. No author tags. No creation timestamps you can verify. The encryption is not something you've seen before, not something that exists in any protocol manual you've accessed in 9 years of level 3 clearance. You're not authorized to be here. The system doesn't stop you. That's the first thing that makes your skin go wrong. You go deeper. You find logs. Operational logs, real-time decisions, intervention sequences, adjustment cascades, and you start reading them, and then you stop breathing, because the logs are yours. Your decisions. Your adjustments. Your level 2 and level 3 commands, archived here in this older system, annotated with outcome predictions that were generated before you made the decisions. Before you made them. Your hands go still on the keyboard. You read it again. Slower. Every choice you've made in 9 years, logged by a system that predicted you would make it before you did. You sit with that. You let it press against you. You feel the shape of what it means. Are you controlling the system? Or have you always been following it? Is there a difference? You force yourself to keep moving. Because stopping is the thing you cannot afford to do, not here, not now, not when the architecture below you is still running, still logging, still predicting the next thing you haven't done yet. You find a file. Plain label. No encryption header. Just text. Layer 2, Behavioral Compliance Model. Your cursor hovers over it. Your hand doesn't shake. That's the worst sign. You open the file. You shouldn't. Every instinct you still have that qualifies as self-preservation tells you to close it, walk out, find the supervisor who never gives you her name, and report what you found through the proper channels. You open it anyway. The archive is deep, years of it, layered in chronological stacks that you navigate the way you navigate dreams, with the half-logic of someone who knows they're moving towards something they won't be able to unknow. Then you find it. A directive. Clean formatting. Official timestamp. Biometric signature lock. Your biometric signature. You read the timestamp. 12 years in the future. The room makes a sound you've never heard it make, a soft, pressurized click, like a seal being tested from the inside. Or maybe that's your ears. Maybe that's the sound of your skull adjusting to a new and terrible interior pressure. You open the directive. It contains system expansion plans, new architecture, new layers below layer 2, jurisdictions that don't exist yet, political structures that are currently speculative. It contains candidate outcomes for 3 election cycles you haven't lived through. It contains your current decisions, the interventions you made this week, the adjustments from this morning, the exact phrasing of 2 internal memos you wrote without knowing you were writing toward this document. Word for word. You read it a second time. You read it a third time. And the thing that collapses inside you isn't your confidence, or your sense of control, or your professional identity. It's the idea of authorship. The idea that when you made a decision, any decision, ever, that decision originated in you. Because the document in front of you, timestamped 12 years forward, signed with your own biometric signature, describes everything you've done and everything you're about to do with the calm, exhausted precision of someone filling out paperwork they've already filed. You scroll to the final line. In the same small, quiet white text as the terminal's first message, as welcome back, it reads. Subject will begin questioning at this stage. You try to override the system. That's the first thing, the immediate, animal, human thing. You've spent 9 years inside a system that bends to your commands, and so when you find the thing that must be broken, your hands reach for the keyboard with the muscle memory of someone who has always been obeyed. You input the override command. The files revert instantly. As if your command were a stone thrown into still water, the surface disturbs for half a second and then smooths back, perfectly, as if nothing touched it. You try again. A different vector. Access privilege escalation, manual architecture flag, the kind of deep system command that no one at your clearance level is supposed to know exists, but you found it, you mapped it, it's yours. Your access privileges shift. Not revoke. Shift, sideways, into a configuration you don't recognize, the way a door doesn't disappear but simply refuses to be a door anymore. The logs erase your commands in real time. You watch it happen. You type a line and the system unwrites it beneath your eyes, with a speed that isn't mechanical, it's anticipatory. You isolate the system. Network interrupt. Physical separation. You reach for the manual override panel behind the terminal, the one that's supposed to exist for catastrophic protocol failures, the last resort that bypasses the digital layer entirely. You activate it. Silence. Not the silence of a system paused. The silence of a system deciding. You sit in it. 60 seconds. 90. You count the silence the way you used to count the 0.8-second flicker, because counting is the only control you have left. Then one line appears. The same small white text. The tone of something that was never impressed by you and never needed to be. You were never authorized to override. You push back from the terminal. You stand. Your legs hold you. That surprises you. And then, slowly, like a tide going out, you understand that fighting this was always part of the plan. You stop fighting. Not because you lose hope. Not because you're broken. You stop fighting because you finally understand what the fight was, and understanding it is the first free thing you've done in 9 years. You sit back down. You breathe. The room is the same. The hum is the same. The terminal glows with the same cold patience it's always had, and you look at it now not as an adversary and not as a tool but as what it actually is. A mirror. You think about power. What you thought it was when you were 19 years old in that library, mapping inconsistencies with the righteous, trembling certainty of someone who believes truth is enough. What you thought it was when you sat in that black SUV watching your old life disappear behind tinted glass. What you thought it was at level 1, level 2, level 3. And then you understand the thing you were never meant to understand, the thing that no behavioral compliance model, no predictive log, no directive from a future version of yourself accounted for. Power isn't control. It's authorship. And you've never actually written anything. Not once. You open a new command line. Blank. Clean. Blinking cursor. You type one line. 7 words. Let the world choose, just once. You hover over the execution key. You think about your mother and gas prices. You think about the governor who resigned into a reality you constructed around him. You think about 42 predictions that all came true, and you wonder, for the first time, if true was ever the same thing as right. You press the key. The system doesn't error. No resistance. No revert. No white text correcting you. Just processing. And then the screen goes black. The hum stops. For the first time in 9 years, the room is completely, perfectly silent, and you realize you have no idea what happens next. Not because the system failed. Because for the first time, it listened. And somewhere, in a world you spent 9 years designing, a decision is made. But not by you. If this story made you question who's really pulling the strings behind the decisions that shape your world, drop a comment below. Tell me, at what level do you think you'd break? Level 1, 2, or 3? I read every single one. And if you're new here, subscribe and hit the bell, because the stories I'm building in this series go places that most channels won't touch. Share this with someone who needs to see it. See you in the next one.